You thought the which book format debate was great. I got one that may top that. Used books versus new books. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen. We are your hosts at Books Banter and Beyond. And just like we always like to do, we get those hardcore debates of those deep thoughts. And if you enjoyed our book format one, go check it out. But I think this one is probably a little more 50-50. There's a lot
Mhm.
of people that think one way or the other, right?
Right,
So we're going to talk about used book versus new books, and it's actually a perfect topic for what we are, being
right.
that we are a gently used, as we call it, bookstore. But there's different things to think about when debating on what you want as far as a book goes. Obviously, a lot of people will say they'll hop onto Amazon or Barnes and Noble and get the newest title from said author, which is great. I mean, that's what you have to do when a new author puts out a book. It's
Right,
obviously going to be brand new because it's hot off the shelves. You can still
right,
smell the new, the ink,
right, right,
all that. But if you're thinking of just filling up your shelf with some books for fun, whether it's your favorite of self help or self improvement, or my favorite of sci-fi and fantasy, you can actually take into consideration if you want a used or a new one. So we'll go down the list, kind of pros and cons of each, and kind of discuss what we think here is the good and the bad, maybe of each one. So we'll start with new books. And new books, I think the best reason for it is they are brand new. They are bright and shiny. The pages are crisp. The covers are good. If you're somebody who enjoys actually displaying the books, there's no rips on the cover. That's probably, I think, for me, the biggest plus to a new book.
and a new book, it may be the only way you can get it. It may have just come out. There are no new used books of that, title. And so
Right.
if any response, it's if a new book is just coming out on the market, you only can get a new book. You can't get
Right. So that
used.
was actually, yeah. So that's the other one I think too, is that, unfortunately, if you want a book and it hasn't been out yet and it's brand new, that's your choice. You
Right,
you can't get a used book that hasn't been used yet. That would be backwards.
right,
Um,
right, right,
right. So I think generally speaking, it's the visual and the fact that literally the word new means brand new.
right,
Um, on the flip side, when it comes to used books, it could be various different things. A lot of people enjoy the fact that somebody read it and took care of it. They highlighted in it. They maybe bent a page and they wrote little things in it. I
right.
remember in school, all of my books, because we bought them used, I believe, because it was easier to get them. There was notes all over the place. I didn't know what half of them were. There was doodles. Some of it was like, what is this? But it was really funny to just see what the last person
Right.
was doing with my school book. Sometimes it actually helped because they wrote answers in there, and I'm like, hey, I have the answers now.
And
Some,
but Rob, doesn't it sort of give you the feeling of a library too? Because libraries are all used books as well, right?
that is true. I think everything at the library nowadays, I know some of them have the new shelf, but 98% of what's in the library is, yes, it's going to be somebody's old books. It's going to be a book that you're not actually keeping. You're literally just
Right.
renting it
And
for a
even
couple weeks.
right, and even if it is a new book in the library for that 1 second, it's new. Once somebody checks it out and brings it back, hello, it's used.
That it,
So
yeah,
I think, and again, so I happen to love used books. There's something about upcycling. There's something about reusing. There's something about being much kinder to our environment and not constantly new, 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 new,
and I'm
new.
glad you did that because that's actually one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't realize. It's the impact of sustainability.
Hmm.
With a new book, not only are you paying more out of your pocket because
Hmm.
obviously a new book costs more, excuse me, but the machines are making brand new products
Hmm.
with new materials. So paper from the trees that
Right,
have to be cut down. In terms of used books, nothing new has to be made. It's already
right,
put together. You may have to go back in and maybe glue, or you may have to, tape something on if the cover is a little ripped. But that's different than creating a whole new book, right? Now, the only caveat here is once in a while, if it's a popular book, like for instance, some of the books we have for Lord of the Rings are actually new copies, they're redone. They will remake old books, but even still, it's usually
Right.
a small window of time. And the ones we have are maybe about this big, they're small. So they're not really using a lot of resources. It's kind of like, well, we have some extra paper. Let's see if we can just throw out a couple of these new versions for you. But overall, I'm with you on the used. It's less impact on the environment, and you don't need to spend any more money because it's
Right.
been made.
Right. I don't know about you. I mean, you've got a bookshelf behind you. I've got a bookshelf behind me. I keep the books that I buy either are used or I'll buy self-help books. I generally like new because I don't want to see other people's scribbles in it. I don't want to see
Sure.
other people's thoughts on self-help. I just want to know what the guy who's teaching me self-help. But
Right.
in fiction books, absolutely, absolutely. Because first of all, do you write notes in your fiction books?
Once in a while, if I come across something that really strikes me and I want to go research it, I'll kind of just like tag it, write something down, maybe put a little post-it. But what I was going to say on that one is that depending on, like, if you see behind me, I have various ones. The Pokemon ones there, because of the company, they don't really have used per se. They're always making new stuff. So depending on the franchise or the brand,
Right.
it's always going to be new, not to the sake of brand new, but it's going. They like it clean. They like it fresh. So certain books, even
Right.
if they're old, they're printing new ones just for the aesthetic for them.
And the money that comes in allows to be able to support the publishing actual industry by providing more income so that they can then
Yes,
promote and do more books, kind of thing. So
right.
there's benefits to both. I mean, I can see that there's benefits.
And I was going to say, so the Stephen King that you see up there behind me, those are used, but they're old as well because people like him, they don't redo the books necessarily unless maybe there's an anniversary. But all of his are going to be the old versions anyway, so the chance of finding a new one is probably going to be harder than just finding an
Right. Let's
original.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
So
So
let's differentiate between used book and old book.
yes, okay,
Okay, because Stephen King is not, he's not, if he runs out of books, if somebody goes to Amazon and wants to buy a Stephen King book, if there are nothing in stock, they're going to print more, right? I mean, that's you
that's
can't,
true.
right?
Yes,
But in terms of a used book, what you see is what you get, which is why I kind of like, it's like sort of like going
okay.
to a swap meet, but for books. It's sort of like going to
Ah,
a secondhand store, but for books, so that you're walking through, and just like new books have a smell. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I like books, period, because books have a smell. It's the whole engages, all the senses
right.
except for taste. I hope you're not eating your books.
No,
Um,
don't do that.
but the whole idea. So I guess it becomes a matter of preference, right? What you're going to purchase. Now, again, I like used books and I like gently used books. I love doing this show with you, because you have a previously owned,
Right, and I think
bookstore.
that's one of the reasons why I did this because it's always fun to find just random used old titles.
Right.
If you guys do know, I don't know if it's for every library, but if you go to your library, sometimes there's usually an area for like the one by us. I think it's a quarter a book, and you can just buy books from them, and basically it's overstock or it's stuff that doesn't get checked out, but you can go and you can actually buy books in the library now
I love
because it's
that.
just it's
I
just
love
things they
that.
have. So
Yeah.
we'll do that. Sometimes we'll throw it into our store if it's a really good title. But yeah, it's a good distinction. So really, it's used, old, and new, I guess. So it gets its three types. There's the new, which is brand new; old, which can be reproduced; and
Right.
used,
Books that
which
were
is, as
written
you
in the
said,
past. Books that were written years ago. And that's, I think, how we want it. So new books are being written now. Old books are
correct.
written before. There are old books that are used, and there are old books that have not yet been sold. I mean, they're old books. They're all the different titles, but somebody is just buying it for the first time, and they're going to get a brand new book that
Correct.
is that title. So it's an interesting conversation. Do you think that you've got marketplaces on Amazon and eBay, and where people will sell their gently used books? when I tend to buy books, if I'm not buying from the, Books Band, your bookstore, I will look and see if there's somebody who is selling their gently used book. It's not just for the cost saving, it just feels like it's being handed from person to person to person. It becomes part of the history of the book. That's
And I
just.
think eBay is the best example for used anything really,
Mhm,
because that's what the purpose was. It was basically, or what it became, I should say,
mhm.
um, is that it's an area where you can put your
Right,
stuff on that you're
right,
not using anymore.
right,
In this case, we'll say books, and you can sell them. Difference being is that obviously for our store we keep everything below, it's maybe
right,
$4 or $5 a book. eBay, it's their choice. They can charge you $25 for a used book. That's on them. They can do whatever. But if you are looking for a general marketplace and you want used, like you were saying, something like eBay is basically eBay is the online garage sale. It's the
right,
garage sale that you can't go to, but you can go on your computer and go, hey, I found it.
right.
Click. 3 days later, it shows up.
So let's talk about your bookstore. Okay. So Next Chapter Bookstore has used books, and it's kind of cool the way it's set up. It's an online bookstore. I know in the
Mhm.
future you are talking about, launching into in the real world kind of bookstore. But right now it's set up. They can search by category, right? And they
Yes,
can search by. I would do it by category, not necessarily by title, because you don't know what's in there. So meaning not you, you know what's in there, but the buyer doesn't. So by category first, and then you can go in and see what's actually in there. And I know that you have, if you buy $35 worth of books, shipping is free, right?
correct.
Can't pass that up, guys, especially when the books are so inexpensive. You can literally stock your shelves for very, very little. I just like the way books feel, right? I mean, I like looking at my books in the
Yeah,
back. It makes me feel like I'm well read, even though, to be honest, I haven't read them all. There are books that eventually I'll read, maybe. Uh, I just like the idea of being surrounded by knowledge like this. It is such a cool feeling. I
yeah.
love
I
these
mean, I will take reading a book as an activity any day of the week.
Right,
So, you all do what you want to do. I'm happy sitting in my chair, just reading or
right,
listening, depending. But yeah, I think it's a good debate, and there's not one wrong answer. I think if
of
you
course not.
like new books, that's cool. If you like used books, that's cool.
Our
Um,
listeners, our viewers, what do you guys like? Let us know.
yeah,
Do you like new books, used books? Put it in the comments. Let us know. Um, and is there a particular genre of used books or new books that you like? Because, Rob's always on the lookout for cool stuff. So,
oh
if
yeah,
he hears that you like something, maybe he can find it for you. Guys, it's always fun to have you on the show, and participating with us. We'll see you next time on the next Books Banter and Beyond. Goodbye, everyone.